Okay, let's wait a couple of minutes, see if somebody else joins. Okay. Okay, so please don't forget to turn your cameras on before we start. Okay. Don't forget your cameras, Sarai. Okay, so today's gonna be our makeup class. We're gonna make up for that class that we missed, I think 2 weeks ago, right? We couldn't have done it last week because you had to make up for a holiday, I believe. So what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna continue working on the speaking section. We're not gonna start anything new today, so it's not really gonna be a theory class. What we're gonna do instead is we're gonna practice the speaking section, which I think is gonna be really useful. So it's kind of like our practice for the entire, not the entire speaking section, because we're still missing the fourth question, but we're gonna be practicing what we've done so far for the speaking section, okay? If you remember, these are the tasks that we have in the speaking. We have the first one, which is the independent task. You just explain your opinion. The second one, which was the one where you had an announcement and a campus conversation between two students. Remember? We have the third one, that is the one we did, the last one we did, where you had to read a passage, then listen to a lecture, and then summarize it. And we're not going to work on the fourth one because we're going to work on that tomorrow. So first of all, I want to know how you guys are doing. Out of these 3 tasks that we have seen so far, what do you think about them? Have any comments? Is there anything that you're struggling with specifically? Maybe a specific task or something about the 3 of them? How do you feel so far about the speaking section? What do you think, Sarai?
Well, I struggle a little with the third one because to give an conclusion, because I not find the correct words to give a conclusion. Maybe if you can give us some words that we can conclude.
Okay, yes, we can do that today. Although remember that for all of the speaking section, the conclusion is extra, right? It's just optional. But I will give you some tips, maybe some ideas for the conclusion if you want to keep it. Anything else, Sarai, or is that it?
Maybe also in the listening section, I struggle with identify maybe that generally there are 2 problems or 2 things that are disturbing the person who is talking. Sometimes I get lost in that 2 topics.
All right. So that is in task 2, right? Where you mean when you listen to the conversation between the 2 students.
Especially when it's an article, and I think well, when we were practicing, I get lost when the person who is talking in the article says her point of view, and there are usually there are 2, and I get lost with that.
So, but you mean task 2, right? When you read the announcement? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, we can work on that task 2. And Natalie, what about you? Is there anything you're struggling with?
Yeah, I feel struggling with the task number 3 because it's hard for me taking notes and listening everything at the same time. So I always miss some of the conversation. So yes.
Okay, I see. Okay, so what we can do is, you know what, like for task 3, honestly, you could, I mean, you don't necessarily have to take so many notes. So let's practice today and try not to take notes. Try one without taking any notes and see how it goes. And then try another one where you take just a few words and see how it goes too. Because you don't need so many notes for the speaking section. It's not like the listening. So we're gonna practice them and see. Let's start with task 2, right? Because I think we are okay with the first one. So let's start with the second one. See how it is or what we have. Okay. Okay. This one here. Okay, we're gonna start with this one here. First, let's try to do it. I'm gonna see how you guys do it, and then I'll give you some tips, and maybe we can work on something specific. But let's have one first. This is gonna be the reading. Remember that to read, you have 45 seconds, right? So starting now, you have 45 seconds. Okay, now we're gonna listen to the conversation. So try not to take notes, Natalie. Just listen to their conversation, and then we'll.
Now listen to two students discussing the article. So what do you think of the university's new plan?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's going to work.
No?
I mean, I can't imagine top students being too thrilled about some of the conditions on this campus.
What do you mean?
Like the science laboratories having such old, outdated equipment, and the library needing more books, and the student center being so small. I think that the $2 million could be spent in better places if the university is really serious about achieving its goal.
Okay, but what about the other reason for building the stadium? I mean, right now we have so little contact with the town.
Yeah, but this won't help relations. Look, people from town hardly ever come to games because our teams always lose, and they're not suddenly going to improve overnight. Besides, adding seats won't make a difference. I mean, if people from town didn't come before, they won't come now just because the place is bigger.
Okay, here's the question. It says, the woman expresses her opinion about the university's plan. State her opinion and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion. Now you have 30 seconds to prepare your response. Okay. So maybe we can start with you, Natalie. You go first. Let's see.
Okay. The woman disagree with the idea of the new stadium because she points out that it's too much money to spend it in things in a new stadium, and there are so many things that need to be invest, like library. So he also states that that doesn't it is doesn't gonna make a strength um, relation with town because their team never win a game.
Okay, all right, Natalie. So you didn't take notes at all, right? When you were listening, when you were reading. Did you take
Yes.
notes?
No,
You didn't.
I didn't.
Okay, but when you prepared, you did take notes, right? You wrote down a few things for the reasons that you looked. Yeah? That you
Yes.
have?
Well,
Okay. So
something like library and team never win.
very end.
And the team never win.
Okay, good. Perfect. Okay. So honestly, I think that you were able to understand and explain the listening quite well without taking notes, because you were right about the two reasons. The first one, that they should be investing that money somewhere else, like the library. And the second, that it's not going to strengthen the relationships, right? Because the team always loses. So both reasons were okay. So I don't think you need to take notes. You do, I mean, I would suggest you to write down just a few things like this when you're listening, but maybe instead of library, the first one was more like money invest somewhere else, right? Else, and the second one was more like not relations. But what I think your response is missing, Natalie, is to include something from the reading. Remember that you need to show that you understand both, not only the listening, even if this is what they're asking you, right? You need to make sure that that you understand both and that you're able to connect both ideas. So my suggestion, because I think that you were struggling also with time, the first one was too long and the second one was not so complete. So what you can do is, first thing, have an introduction, okay? And in your intro, don't mention anything but the change. You need to take notes about this, what the change is. So in this case, so in the introduction, you're gonna say, the university plans to build a new stadium. And then you tell me, however, the woman disagrees because of two reasons, right? You have your two reasons. First, she points out, and then when you're telling me this money should be invested, that's enough because you're connecting your ideas, right? You need to remember this as well. So make sure that you try to do that, that you connect your ideas. When you're preparing, not only write down your notes for the student, but also for the university. Okay, so make sure that you connect them. Your notes should be like this. The first one is attract students, and the student says invest somewhere else. Right, I'm gonna delete this. Where is this? Come on. Okay, so and invest somewhere else. And your second one should be strengthening relationships and team loses. So this is all you need, right? So make sure that you have your introduction, and when you're talking about the students' reasons, you somehow connect it. So you need to say something like, The student believes that it won't attract students because they should invest the money somewhere else, for example, the library. Also, she says that this won't strengthen the relationship because the team always loses, right? So try to compare something like that, and don't forget your introduction. I think that's the only thing that I could say. Try not to take so many notes because you don't really need them. Okay, Natalie, any questions?
Okay. No.
Okay. And also one more thing, be careful with the pronouns. You were mixing them up. You started with she and then you also said he. What you can do to avoid this is instead of saying he or she, just say the student. It's okay if you repeat. You know, the student points out that, and for the second you say also, the student believes, or you can just say the speaker if you want. Or in your notes, you write down the pronoun, right? She, so that you can use. But careful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Sarai, let's do another one so that you can do it. All right, this is gonna be the one. Okay. So remember, you guys have 45 seconds to read.
Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
Did you see this letter, Jim?
Yeah.
Be kind of nice to be able to do that, huh?
No, actually, I don't think it's a good idea.
Why not?
Well, like the part about how it'll help students concentrate. I mean, maybe a little snack will help the person who's eating it, but the trouble is that it makes it hard for everyone else to concentrate, because they have to listen to someone munching on chips, or biting into an apple, or crinkling paper wrappers.
I guess it can be kind of disruptive.
Yeah, it would interfere with everyone's concentration. You wouldn't be able to pay attention with all the noises going on.
Okay, I guess I have to agree with you on that. But what about her other reason? It would be nice to be able to have some fun at the end of the semester, right?
No, there's a problem with that, too.
Why?
Well, I don't think it's appropriate to use class time for that kind of thing. I mean, the last classes are usually pretty important. That's when we do a lot of reviewing for final exams.
True.
If we use that time for that, we probably wouldn't have time to do as much reviewing, which means we wouldn't be...
True.
If we use that time for that, we probably wouldn't have time to do as much reviewing, which means we wouldn't be as well prepared for exams.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Okay. The question says, the man expresses his opinion about the proposal in the newspaper. Briefly summarize the proposal, then state his opinion and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. And now you have 30 seconds to prepare. Okay, so Sarai, you can go now.
Okay. In the letter, it states that a university should allow students to eat in class for two principal reasons: that for them to concentrate and have a little celebration at the end of the semester. But the student, is against of this letter because he thinks that it would not help to concentrate. Instead, the sound of the chewing or biting the food will distract the other students. And also, he thinks that the last class of the semester is so important, and this is why this class should be take more important than being in class.
Okay. All right, well done. I don't think I have many comments. You had the structure, you had your introduction, it was short, but you were able to catch the two reasons, right? Is that what you meant? That you were struggling in understanding the two reasons from the reading?
Yes, there was other reason that I couldn't understand, but I understand.
Okay, that's fine. So yes, you did understand them. And yeah, I think it was clear, right? Because you had these transitions. For one thing, students were permitted to eat, be able to concentrate better. And also, it usually works like that. You need to kind of divide this into three. The first part, the first third, is usually the explanation of the change that's been suggested or that's been announced. The second one is usually the first reason. And the third one is usually the second reason. So you just need to find a way to summarize them. And you did, you said to concentrate better and have a celebration. So that's awesome, the way that you summarize them. And then when you moved on to the student's opinion, I think that was also very clear, the way you summarized the two. The only thing maybe I can say is try to make it a little bit more formal by making sure that you did it's so clear that it's divided. So for example, to transition to the student, make sure that you have a transition, right? You're saying to concentrate better and have a celebration. And then you say, but he's against this letter. So try to have a stronger transition there. Make a pause, emphasize a little bit more and tell me the student in the conversation, however, is against this letter. And then again, another pause, right? And you try to use a transition. To begin with, he thinks, and then you continue, right? Same thing for the other one. Also, he believes. So maybe just that, try to separate the kind of each part of your response a little bit more, and don't forget those transitions, and it'd be perfect, because I really think it was a good response. Okay, sorry. So don't forget that. Just that's the only thing, I guess. Okay, guys. So let's do two more, and then we can move on to the other task. Task 3, maybe. All right, this is gonna be it. University should pay running trails. Now you guys have 45 seconds to read.
Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
Hey, Ted, you're a runner. Did you see this letter in the paper?
Yeah, I did, and I use those.
And?
I think it's a terrible idea.
How come?
Well, she really hasn't thought it through. Like, the thing about making them safer. What she's not thinking about is the long-term consequences of running on a hard surface.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's not good for you. It's too hard on your bones and joints. If you run repeatedly on a hard surface, it can lead to injuries, or that's what I've been taught anyway. It's better to run on a soft surface. It does less damage to your body.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so actually it wouldn't be safer. And her second point.
About changing the way they look?
Yeah, I don't think people will like it.
So they'd use them less?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main reasons people enjoy them now is it's a way of taking a break from the rest of campus, from buildings and streets and stuff. It's, a chance to feel like you're out in nature.
Oh, so you wouldn't get that effect anymore.
Right. It'd be just like you were on a regular street or sidewalk. It wouldn't be as relaxing.
Okay. The man expresses his opinion about the proposal in the student's letter, briefly summarize the proposal, then state his opinion about the proposal and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. Now you have 30 seconds. Okay, so let's start with you, Natalie. You can go now.
The university has decided to pave the dirt running trail through Forest Campus in order to make it look nicer and also increase the safety. And the student states that he's against this idea because he points out that it's not good for bones and muscles because you can damage your health. And also he thinks that it doesn't look nice because you can feel relaxed being in the nature because now is gonna be paved. So this is what the student states.
Okay, all right, nice. So that was a great response. Now you had your introduction, the structure was a lot more clear, and you even included the two reasons that were mentioned in the reading, right? That's great. You don't always have to do it. You can find a way without mentioning them if you feel like you're struggling with time. But I think you were okay with time. You summarized the two reasons as well. So I have just two comments. First one, make sure that you remember that you always have two options, right? When you read, one of them is, as you said, it could be a decision that the university has made. So in that case, if it's an announcement coming from the university, then you can say the university has decided to pay the rent. But the other options, university announcing something, it could be a student proposing something, right? And you know that first because of the way it is stated, right? It's not like we are going to pay the running trails. It is the university should pay the running trails. I think these trails should be paved, right? So it's like a suggestion. The student suggests that they pave the running trails. And it has a signature as well. And also you have it in the question, right? They say a proposal in the student's letter. So in that case, you need to change your intro and say, the student in the letter proposes to pave or suggests the university paves. So that is one thing. And the second, what was it? Careful with the tenses. It may not be so correct. So for example, you're saying, the the student states that it doesn't look nice, right? It doesn't look nice, and you're saying you can't feel relaxed. It is not good for your bones and joints. So everything is in simple present when it's supposed to be in either the future tense, like going to or will, or it's supposed to be in the conditional tense with would or could or might. You know the modals? Might, could, may. You can use these modals. By the way, this is like a tip for you all. If you want to increase your vocabulary, then you can use other modals. So this is a proposal, right? That's why if you look at the reading, they say, hang on. One reason it would be to increase the safety, right? Would make the trails look nicer. Would solve this problem. Everything is with would because it's like a condition. So you need to keep those tenses. So the student states that if they did this, then it wouldn't be safer, or it wouldn't look nice, or students wouldn't feel relaxed. Or you can change those modals, right? You can say they might not feel relaxed. They are not going to feel relaxed. So careful with those tenses.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's do the last one. This is gonna be a bit different, but I think we can do it. So Sarai, you guys have 45 seconds to read. Okay.
Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
Did you read that letter in the paper?
Sure. And though she's right about the problems, I don't think what she proposes will do much good.
Really?
Yeah. Take her first suggestion. I mean, have you seen the health center?
Of course. Why?
Well, it's tiny, right? The center suffers from lack of space, so unless they build more treatment rooms or offices or something.
Oh, I see.
And also, her second suggestion?
Seems like that'll help things out.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, think about it. A lot of students aren't even here on the weekends.
That's true.
They leave town and get away. There's not a lot of people here.
Yeah, like me. I go home probably at least twice a month.
Right. And a lot of us leave campus for the weekend even more often than that. So there's just not a lot of demand for treatment then. See what I mean?
Okay. The man expresses his opinion about the student's suggestions that are made in the letter. State the man's opinion and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. Now you have 30 seconds. Okay, so Sarai, you can go now.
The letter states about improving the health center students, but with the two suggestions, that is getting more doctors and open in the weekends. But in the conversation, the student disagree with these suggestions. The first reason is because he thinks that getting more doctors will not help because the space is little, so it will not help. And the second reason is because in the weekends there are no students, so the demand for the health center will not be a lot, and this will not help. So that's why the student is not agree with this letter.
Okay, nice. Great. So I'm really glad that you worked on that part of the structure. Now it was a lot more clear. You had your intro, and then you separated it with a transition, and then your two reasons, the first reason, the second. You can maybe use other transitions, but they were still good enough. So yeah, and the structure was different, but you managed just fine. It actually, in this case, it wasn't like a change in two reasons, but maybe like more like a problem and two suggestions, right? But you did it perfectly. So no comments, maybe some expressions in the beginning. The student states about, careful with that. With the verb states, in fact, with most of these verbs like states, mentions, claims, points out, all those verbs, you cannot use about. So you need to have like a sentence. The student states that this is wrong. But if you want to use about, you can just say the student discusses, although you don't need about with discusses, but you could say the student talks about, right? Talks about the problem or the student health, the health center's problem, right? So maybe that, and also at the end, he doesn't agree, right? Not he's not agree. Maybe that, but everything else was fine, Sarai, well done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. So what do you think? Do we start with task 3?
Yes.
Yes.
So let's see what we have for task 3. It is a little bit more complicated because of the vocabulary mainly. Sometimes you have a couple of weird words there, but it is still not that hard. We're gonna see. Let's practice with, okay, let's do this one here. It is an interesting one. So this is the reading. You have 45 seconds to read.
Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a psychology class.
Okay, the first kind of memory, we're all very familiar with this, right? You probably remember what you had for dinner last night. You have a conscious memory of last night's dinner. So if I ask you, what did you eat last night, you could tell me. But these other kind of memories, implicit memories, they work differently. Let's take an example from the world of advertising. When you're driving along a highway, you see plenty of billboards, roadside advertisements. You certainly don't remember them all, but they still affect you. Marketing researchers have shown, well, to be specific, let's say there's a billboard on the highway advertising a car called the Panther. The ad shows a big picture of the car, and above the car in huge letters is the name of the car, Panther. A lot of people drive by the billboard. But ask those drivers later if they saw any advertisements for cars, and, well, they'll think about it, and a lot of them will say no. They honestly don't remember seeing any. They have no conscious memory of the Panther billboard. So, you ask these same people a different question. You ask, you ask them to name an animal starting with the letter P. What do you think they'll answer? Do they say pig? Pig is the most common animal that starts with the letter P. But they don't say pig. They say panther. The billboard had an effect, even though the drivers don't remember ever seeing it.
Okay. The question is, using the example of the car advertisement, explain what is meant by implicit memory. Now you have 30 seconds to prepare. Okay. So maybe Sari, you can go first.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The implicit memory in the example of the car advertisement can be explained that in this example, they told us about driving and see advertisement. And sometimes we can not quite remember what we see, but unconscious, this is still on our mind. For example, if we see a animal that start with the letter P, maybe we don't quite remember, but if they ask about an animal that is with the letter P, we unconsciously name this animal that we see, even if we don't remember ever seen the advertisement.
Okay. All right. So I won't give you any comments yet. Let's see how Natalie does it, and then we'll talk about it. So Natalie, you can start.
Okay, according to the passage, there are two types of memories. In the lecture, the professor illustrates these two types of memories, which are a explicit memory and implicit memory. He explains that explicit memory is the intention to recollect what you have in your memory sometimes. For example, what did you eat last night? And implicit memory is a non-conscious recall. Like, for example, when you remember an animal that you don't know.
Okay. All right. So, okay, guys, I'll give you some comments. Now, first of all, you did it. I mean, you both did it completely different from each other, but both were okay. So, for example, you, Sarai, you started right off with the example, right? You said the professor gives us the example of a car advertisement, and And you kind of generalized it a bit. You said, if we see a car advertisement or a billboard when we're driving, then this is what happens, and we unconsciously remember it. So honestly, I really liked how you explained the example. It was well explained. You could have summarized it a bit more so that you don't use up that much of your time, but it was well explained as far as the example goes. Maybe some comments I could make is the first one, try not to generalize the examples. So if in this case, the example was specifically about this person, this ex-person that sees a car advertisement about a panther for a car, then try to follow that same line. Okay, so you need to say the professor gives us the example of somebody who's driving and on the road sees a car advertisement of a car named Panther, right? And then he's asked to name an animal and so on. So try not to generalize, don't talk about we, but the example. And the second thing, you need to make sure that you connect it with the definition. Now, the easier way that there is to connect the definition of implicit memory to the example, because remember that the question is not asking you to only summarize the example, right? They say use that example to explain the concept. So you need to actually explain the concept. I'm not gonna lie, there are many ways that you can do this, and what you did was actually close. Maybe at the end you could have said, so the fact that this person remembers or unconsciously remembers the name Panther because he has seen the car advertisement is a way in which implicit memories work, right? He remembers, although he doesn't consciously know that he remembers. So maybe you can have something like that to connect it to the definition, but the easiest way that you can do that is having an introduction in which you define the topic. Okay, so if you have this introduction, then you're kind of saving yourself a lot of time and effort. So have an intro where you tell me, according to the reading, implicit memory is the kind of memory we have that is unconscious. And then you explain the example. Okay, so to summarize, just try to make sure that you connect your ideas. So you can do that by having the introduction and define it there, or at the end too. But the problem with doing time, and if you do, then better to do it in the beginning. Okay, Sari, any questions about that?
No, thank you.
And as for your response, Natalie, one thing that is maybe one thing that you can work on is time. So for your response, for example, you started with your introduction and it was good, but it lasted around 40 seconds. And then when you got to the 20, when you were missing 20 seconds, then you started talking about the actual examples. So first thing that I'm gonna say, and this is something that I said as a tip I remember our last class, read the question, right? In this question, even though you had two definitions and two examples, there's only one that matters, and that is the example of the car advertisement and implicit memory. Okay, so you're gonna waste your time if you mention the other type of memory, explicit, in the example. Okay, so make sure that you read the question and that you're answering the question. What else? So it wasn't necessary to mention the other type. And second, try to start as soon as you can. Start with the example as soon as you can. So your introduction should be about 10 seconds. Don't tell me like the professor has a concept and then he defines it and then he gives us an example. Start right off with the definition. Tell me, in the reading, we know that implicit memory is the unconscious memory. And in the lecture, the professor gives us an example. And then you start describing the example, right? The example is about a car advertisement and so on. So start as soon as you can with the example, because remember that the listening is more important. They want to see that you're able to summarize that story of the panther and everything else. So you need to try to start as soon as you can. Okay? So any questions about this?
No, thank you.
Okay. Then let's do one more very quickly and see how it goes. This one here. So remember 45 seconds to read.
Now listen to part of a lecture from a biology class.
There's a large tropical insect called the peanut bug. Yes, like the peanuts that you eat. And the peanut bug's front wings are colored so that they blend in with their surroundings. But its back wings, which are usually closed and hidden, have these bright, colorful spots on them. And when the peanut bug's attacked, it suddenly opens its back wings, and out pop these big, bright colors. And that surprises the predator and gives the peanut bug a chance to get away. And then you have a butterfly called the morpho butterfly. And parts of the morpho butterfly's wings are very shiny. They reflect a lot of sunlight. When this butterfly is resting, this shiny part of its wings is hidden. Now, morpho butterflies are often attacked by birds. So when a bird approaches, the morpho flies away. And when the morpho flaps its wings, all the bird can see are flashes of light reflected from the morpho's wings. Those flashes of light make it very difficult for the bird to follow the morpho, and the morpho is usually able to get away.
Okay. Now the question says, using the examples from the peanut bug and the morpho butterfly, explain the concept of revealing coloration. Now you have 30 seconds. Okay, now you can start. Let's go with Natalie first. You're on mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. According to the passage, revealing coloration is an strategy to hiding from predators. Is a strategy that animals have. In the lecture, the professor illustrates this concept with the examples of peanut bug and morpho butterfly. So these animals can open their wings and show their color and shine with the sun, so they can be hidden from the predators, or maybe got blind the predators and they can escape.
Okay. All right, Natalie, thank you. And Sari.
In the lecture, they told us about the rebelling coloration, that is a way that an animal can get away from the predator by revealing bright colors of their body. In the example of the professor, the peanut bug opened their wings to show their black colors, and so they can disturb the predator and get away. In the butterfly, it has reflecting colors in their wings, so when it opens its wings, especially the birds can get confused and the butterfly can get away from this predator. So this is a way that rebelling coloration can help to these animals.
Okay, great. Can help these animals. Sure. Okay. So great. That was way better. The two responses. You did it differently again. You have different strategies, but I think it's working for you too. So for instance, Natalie, you mix the two examples, right? You put them together, but that's great. I like that because, I mean, you manage time better in that way. You started with your introduction and then you focused on the two examples as you mixed what they had in common. So that can work perfectly fine as long as your examples are similar, right? Illustrating the same idea. So you can still do that. And Sarai, on the other hand, you separated the two. You were more specific maybe about the details of each one, which is also great. Maybe I can say just use transitions, right? When you're separating the two. So say first, the peanut bag does this and this and that. And also the morpho butterfly has this other way of escaping. So only use those transitions, Sarai. And one more comment for you, Sarai, careful. Remember, the reading is not the lecture, right? I think you're getting confused. Reading is not the lecture. The lecture is actually what you listen to. So when you say the lecture, you're referring to the professor's examples. If you want to refer to the reading, just say reading, or the passage, the article, if you want. Okay, careful with that. And I think that would be it. Yeah, I have no comments. I think you guys, I mean, your responses were great. So any questions? Do you have any questions about that? Any questions at all before we go? Okay, guys. Please don't forget then the daily survey, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow because we still have class.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Have a good one.